Alright, what's up guys? It's the much anticipated, probably not by you, but at least by us. I'm not wearing my mask wrong. Alright, there we go. I'm gonna put that over off camera. We're social distance from the camera. We're in good shape. I feel safe with you guys. I'm sure you guys feel safe with me. Unless your computer has viruses, then that's another issue. So we posted a question on the Facebook page. Sent it to a couple different, I'd say group chats of players in the community. We wanted to do kind of like an Ask Me Anything type thing. And it kind of started because a lot of people coming in shop and just asking questions like how did COVID impact you, things like that. And I eventually said, you know what, instead of just answering the same question 95 times in person, I can now have something to reference when I say, well, just watch the video where I answer these questions. So a lot of questions were submitted. I'd say probably about 50 or 60 or so. I don't know the exact total. Josh was kind of in charge of compiling the list and organizing it. So I'm actually not aware of a lot of these questions. Some of them, like I said, like the COVID one, how does it impact you? Like that was obviously one that kind of spurred the whole thing. And I kind of just added it myself because it seems like it's a question people are interested in knowing the answer to. Other ones that were like directly messaged to me, I'm aware of, but the rest of them, you're just going to get my just first time hearing it response. So we're going to have Josh be the, I guess, moderator, even though it's not another person to moderate against, but he's going to be the person reading the questions. So if you hear another voice that's not mine, you guys recognize it. Josh has been in probably about 7 or 8 videos at least at this point. So go ahead, Josh, while you get the first question, I'll get my first start block.
All right, so just to let you know, the way that a lot of the questions were asked, I kind of bunched them into a couple different categories just so it's a little easier that we can do all that. So the first category that we're going to have is personal questions for you.
Oh, okay.
So the first one is, what is your favorite Starbucks and your favorite non-Starbucks drink?
Fitting as I'm drinking a Starbucks drink, like I do a lot of times on the videos. If I'm just going to like a gas station or a place that sells like the prepackaged things, I do like the Frappuccinos a great deal. I've been really digging the brown butter one, but my safe go-to option is just the basic caramel. If I'm going to an actual Starbucks location, if it's hot outside, I go with the caramel Frappuccino, and if it's rather cold or I need to pick me up, I do go with the caramel latte or chocolate shots. Now the woman I'm with detests coffee. Like, it's not that she isn't respected or anything, she just doesn't like it. So she usually goes with like the green teas and like the chai lattes. That's kind of her go-to thing. So we at least get to enjoy it together. The other question was non-Starbucks drink. I've really cut back on sodas. I would have said Mountain Dew if this question was asked like 2 or 3 years ago. I occasionally have a Coke because it's what we have here. But usually a lot of water, a lot of Gatorades.
Alrighty. When did you get into Magic, and take us through your history with the game?
So I've had kind of like an off and on relationship with Magic. I started playing, geez, I'm trying to remember how old I was. I was probably about 7 or 8 was my first exposure to the game. Now, when Bob, Josh, and I talked about before, he kind of called me out, and rightfully so. It's because I really didn't know exactly the time period in terms of like when the sets were out. The first cards I remember seeing were from my age, which was clearly before I was, like 8 years old. So I started playing a little bit when I was at Boy Scouts. I was a huge fan of Pokemon, like a lot of kids in the 90s were. Then I was hanging out with some of the older kids in the Boy Scout group and started playing with what they had. Then I kind of played straight through until about Kamigawa. It just wasn't like a set that really piqued my interest, and I was kind of at that age too where I was trying to find myself as a human being. So I kind of got out of the game for a while, and I took a couple years off. Then my one real good friend, we kind of referenced in another video. He got me back into it when he got into it for the first time by playing original Amstrad, and that's what got me back into the game. Didn't really get heavily back into the game, like playing tournaments and all that stuff, until later on. That's around Return to Ravnica that I got heavily involved and started going back to FNMs and things like that. And the first time I had drafted since getting back into Magic was original Theros. So then ever since then, I've been kind of back into it, playing different formats. I've played a lot of Standard and Modern. Then a couple of my friends got me into Commander, and now that I own a shop, I've actually done solely Commander. I'll still do drafts and sealed, but I don't maintain any decks outside of Commander. And even then, I really don't get to maintain them that much.
All right. Why don't you talk politics in your videos?
There is no tangible benefit for me to talk politics. I forget what comedian it was that said, if you start talking on for one side, you automatically lose 50% of your audience. That's not what this channel is designed to do. This channel, and I believe this gaming itself, is supposed to be kind of like an escape from reality for even a couple hours a night on Fridays if we do have NEMs. So I really don't see the benefit from me talking politics. On top of that, too, I mean, like even people in our store, we all have different political beliefs. Like Steve and I are not say complete opposites. We agree on probably about 60% of the issues. We have but like there's still enough of a divide that like Steve and I would need to be consistent, and he and I aren't. Our Saturday guy is complete opposite of where I am politically, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think diversity is a good thing because it kind of allows you to have different perspectives. But we also don't want to be polarizing and push people away from the channel when we're just supposed to be entertainment. We're just opening packs, we're talking Magic. If there's a political issue that comes up in Magic, we'll address it. But I'm not going to sit here and like endorse a political party or candidate. That's just not beneficial to anyone. So.
Okay. What are your preferred card sleeves and deck box?
Well, that's an easy one. We went from politics to card sleeves.
Try to change it up a little bit for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I appreciate that. It's like, okay, here's a 99-mile-per-hour fastball coming towards your head, and now here's a softball being lobbed at you. Not to make a shameless plug for stuff behind my head, I've gotten really into Dragon Shields. My personal preference is the petrol ones. A good friend of ours, that's all he uses. So of course I copied him because we have a very similar taste in that. For a long time I was going with KMCs. They seem to be higher quality. They seem like their quality dipped a bit. And while they're kind of dipping, Dragon Shields kind of went up in their quality. So I've been a fan of them, especially being a Commander player and having 100 some odd card sleeves. Right from the get-go made it a lot easier. So compared to having to buy 2 or 3 packs of sleeves in case of a blowout, just getting one thing of Dragon Shields for a deck just seemed a lot smarter. To answer your question about the deck box, I've always liked the Ultra Pro mana flip trays. I know they're not the highest quality, but when I was running 5, 6, 7, 8 decks at a time, it was easy to distinguish which deck was going to be in which box. So that's more of a convenience thing than like a quality control thing. But what I'm using now is the Ultimate Guard flipping tray. A really good friend of mine bought me one several years back. And it can hold 2 Commander decks, sleeves. There's a little dice tray on the inside. And I mean, for what they are, they're pretty reasonably costed. So that's just my personal preference. I know everyone has their own, but if you ask me for mine, that's what mine is. I know that there's a lot of new products that have been flooding the market recently that may be better. I mean, you might want to check out Dallion Community College for his actual product reviews. That's not something I've really thought about doing. So I'm sure there'll probably be a better option down the line, but that's just my preference.
Is there a such thing as having too many sets of dice?
Asking a Magic player or a guy who owns a gaming and card store. If you feel the need to ask the question, then maybe in your particular situation, the answer might be yes. I don't see a problem with having as many as you want. If you can functionally get away with running one set that you really, really like, then sure. That I think one is fine. If you like a lot of variety and want 15 or 100 different sets, then that's fine too. If you got the money to throw at it, it's something that interests you, then by all means, do it. So to answer the question simply, I don't think that there's such thing as too many. Now, if you're replacing food with dice sets and you're spending money on dice instead of food, then that might be a problem. But that's on the individual, not anyone else.
Okay. This next question is kind of a three-parter, so I'm going to just go through it one by one.
If it gets to the whole thing, I can focus.
Okay. What are your honest thoughts on Steve's videos? What factor can you attribute to why he gets so many negative reactions and comments? And why don't you do story time?
I'll actually answer the last one first, as it seems like the simplest. It seems kind of separate from the topic of Steve's videos. Even though it's something he likes to do, it's easy to separate. So I personally don't like doing story time. I have no problem with the format. I think it's actually a very cool, creative thing. It's something he's actually been doing in store for a long time. A lot of our customers get a kick out of it. I personally don't do it because that's his thing. That is 100% something Steve enjoys doing. It's something that Steve is very good at doing. He's a lot more creative in that way than I am. So I just wouldn't feel comfortable putting myself out there to show just truly how uncreative, is that a word? Or non-creative?
Non-creative.
Okay, just how non-creative I am. So I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. And again, it's something Steve likes to do. It's part of the regular lineup at this point for Steve, and I wouldn't feel comfortable doing it. What can I attribute to Steve not getting the same reactions that I do? We have to ask the people reacting. I honestly don't know. I've obviously watched every single video he's done. Much like I've watched all of my videos because I'm living the videos by doing them. I can't really point to any one factor. The only thing I can personally think of is that for a long time I was doing the videos by myself, not a long time, but like a couple weeks. So maybe people got used to a certain style or a certain voice, and then there's a different style and a different voice. That's one thing I could think of. But no, it's a shame because Steve is he's a very outgoing person. I come across like an outgoing person, but I'm more reserved, especially in our personal lives. So I kind of feel like I have to, in a way, put on a facade, where Steve just gets to be his natural, goofy, fun self. And a lot of people reacted negatively to it, and I just can't think of why that would be.
Good. Best hand in poker.
Well, guys, we're here talking about Magic and poker.
You're the one that said, ask you anything, so they're asking you anything.
Right. If they're asking me for like the best hand in poker, I mean, I haven't played poker for a long time. I'm assuming still Royal Flush. So if that's the question, then that's the answer. Best hand I've ever gotten, I think I got a pair of threes once, so I don't know.
All right. What is your favorite non-Magic the Gathering tabletop game?
Okay, well, I like how they specifically said tabletop because outside of Magic, I really don't do a whole lot of tabletop gaming as much. That question may have been better served for Steve if he does one of these type of videos. It's going to sound kind of basic, considering that a lot of people in the gaming community have a plethora of different games that they can pull from. Like I've been enjoying Sheriff of Nottingham. I haven't gotten a chance to play that too frequently, but it's a game I like. And Settlers of Catan. So yeah, two kind of now mainstream games, but it's what I prefer. So,
what are your favorite Magic the Gathering decks, regardless of format?
There's a lot of decks that intrigue me that I've always wanted to put together but haven't. Like I've always wanted to kind of do kind of like a mill deck in Modern, even though it functionally wouldn't work. I mean, it would work, but wouldn't like win anything. So in that way, it wouldn't work. There's been probably dozens of Commander decks I've wanted to put together but haven't. Favorite deck I ever put together was probably the Narset deck I had in Commander. And not just because it was the most expensive deck I built and had like the best cards in it. It was just a very, very competitive deck that won consistently by turn 3 or 4, and that was on a bad day. So I brought that to a lot of tournaments and competitive EDH events, and I would typically do very well. So for that reason, that's probably my favorite deck.
Alrighty. Do you enjoy CEDH or casual EDH, and why?
Well, actually, that actually timed out very well. So based on the last answer, you'd think the answer would be competitive. Now that I am out of competitive Magic and out of that scene, my answer is just different. I mean, that Narset deck was from like 4 or 5 years ago, where it's taking infinite turns. People just sit there and watch me play solitaire. So I actually do enjoy casual because that's a lot of what the player base here plays for Commander. And I actually kind of like making janky things and seeing if it works. And if it doesn't, who cares? It's for fun anyways. If you ask this question to 24 or 25-year-old Dallion, I would have said competitive. But where I'm at in my life now and my mindset, I'm very much a casual player. Don't get me wrong, I still like having good cards in the deck because I still like the opportunity to win. But I'm not going to tune out a deck to win before anyone else gets to draw the first card. That's kind of not what I want to do anymore.
Cool. All right, this next set of questions is all about Magic the Gathering.
Okay, seems like a lot of the questions from the personal ones were also
yeah, but I mean,
for Magic, but
these are more generalized
okay.
for Magic. So, yeah, this one could still be under personal too, but what is your favorite Magic the Gathering card?
See, this kind of goes back to, like, I would have had a different answer some time ago. At this point, I'd probably say Mirari's Wake. Being a Commander player, if you're playing green and white, it's kind of a staple. It's degenerate enough that it does give you a massive advantage, and I kind of like the idea of cheating things out. But in the same token, though, too, it's not so degenerate that you can't interact with it. It's not like a card like Omniscience, per se, where as soon as you play it, you better win. But no, it does draw enough table hate that people know that you're being serious and actually really give a crap and want to win. And also Paramonicon, I'd say, because I like a lot of ETB effects, so then being able to double that is very cool. So those are probably the two my two favorites right now. For a card outside of EDH, even though I did build an EDH deck as him as the commander, when I was playing Standard, I built a janky red-blue mill deck, and I had Flip Jace. I mean, it's a Merfolk Looter on a slightly bigger body that turns into a very, very usable Jace Planeswalker. So I've always had a soft spot for that. So
we talked about your history with the game before. What is your favorite set that you've ever played?
I think it's kind of going to be a canned answer on this. I know a lot of people like Innistrad, the original Innistrad. So for me, that would be also my answer. It's not because everyone else liked it. It's just where I got back into Magic. So it kind of rekindled my my love and joy of playing the game. Is it like the strongest set of all time or strongest set I've ever played? No. But because it got me back into it, I'd probably say original Innistrad. Okay, we're back. I actually had to take a bathroom break partway through me answering the next question you guys are about to hear. So we're just going to start that question over again. I think I had too much Starbucks coffee. Let's go with that. Okay, so what's the question one more time?
Okay, so what is your favorite thing you've ever done in a game of Magic?
I mean, aside from the obvious answer of winning, so there was a time where I played Mono Red Burn in Modern. I had won all the cards, or most of the cards I didn't have by playing a competitive EDH tournament, and I did very well, and actually had the Narset deck at the time. Now I know there's better versions of Burn, it's just the one that I had chosen to go with. And and I feel bad for Josh because there's actually two stories that are going to be going with this, and he's probably heard them 1,000 times at this point. So so I was playing my Mono Red Burn deck. It was the first time I made an appearance at a Modern event in our store, and this was actually at our first location that we had. And so turn one, I forget exactly what was all in my hand. I had 3 lightning bolts, a lava spike. I think I had a goblin guide, but I had kept it 1 lander because everything in my hand was 1 mana. So because I didn't know what the other person was playing, I decided to play Mountain and pass. And then if they had anything that they were going to throw on turn 1, I can just bolt it, or I can just bolt them in the face of the turn worst case scenario. So I mean, I know the conventional wisdom is to put the goblin guide out on turn 1. But I didn't want to really tip my hand exactly what I was doing, and I wanted to see what they were doing. So I would say Mountain, pass, and they drew their card, and they said, they're like, oh, this is kind of weird playing basic Mountain and passing. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you don't know what I'm doing yet. So he played an Arid Mesa, cracked it, he grabbed a Godless Shrine, then he thought seized. So he paid 5 life just to see what was in my hand. So I kind of saved him the trouble when I decided to lightning bolt him in response to at least remove one of those from my hand to begin with, because he wasn't going to play anything else. He'd already used his mana. So I bolted him. He goes, "Wait, are you playing burn?" I was like, "Yeah. What other modern deck plays a mountain on turn 1 and passes and is completely okay with it?" And he's like, "Oh, that's a good point." So Function did 8 points of damage. Granted, 5 of them he did to himself. So he lava axed himself in the face. So he did 8 points of damage to himself on turn 1. And then next turn, first card I drew was the one Thunderous Wrath I put in the deck. So I showed it to him. I was like, "You're down to 7 life on this. You just want to go game 2. So him taking away a quarter of his own life against a burn deck, that's pretty cool. The other one was I was playing my Flip Jace commander deck I had built at the time. And it was very much just counters, and that was it. The whole thing was counters and mill. And then the win con was Land Maniac with Enter the Infinite. Or I think I also had, I think I had 2 or 3 Eldrazi Titans in the deck. Well, 2 of the original Titans, then Ulamog Ceaseless Hunger from Battle for Zendikar. So the win con was just stop you from doing anything, big dumb thing, stomp you in the face, or combo out. So at turn 1, played Island, Soul Ring, then played Mindcrank. And for you guys who are not familiar, don't want to do the research, it's not the video. Whenever you're dealt damage, you mill one. So I was playing against the Doomsday Zerg deck. And it's funny because this guy I did this against actually is working at the store now. And he hates when I bring the story out because there's a terrible misplay on his part. So the game goes on for several turns, and I think he kind of forgot about the Mindcrank being there because I have not done any damage because that's not my deck really did. So he eventually plays Necropotence and declares that he's going to pay 30 life. And said, "I'm going to pay 30 life, and I'm going to draw 30 cards, and I'm going to grab a win con." I'm like, "That's perfectly fine, but are you sure you want to do that, with all things considered?" I didn't tell him about the Mindcrank. I just wanted to see if he noticed it for himself, and he's like, "Yeah, that's what my deck does. My whole combo is doing this." I said, "Okay, last chance. Are you sure you want to do that?" He goes, "Yes." All right. Well, then mill 1, draw 1. Wait, what? I pointed at the Mindcrank. So he sat there and went through 60 cards in his deck, and half of them end up being exiled because he had Rest in Peace all the time, which removes graveyards. It was Rest in Peace. That's right, too. It was all graveyards. So he watched every part of his win con, his combo just got exiled, and it was very deflating for him. But for me, it was awesome, and is a great example of people not paying attention to the full board and not misplaying. So kind of a long-winded answer, but those are my 2 favorite moments that I can remember.
Alrighty, what is your least favorite deck to play against?
Anything that just sits there and just slogs and just holds up the game. I mean, it sounds like any control deck, but there's at least level of interaction. Lantern Control in Modern is probably my least favorite deck to play against because it just slogs and it just takes forever to get anything. There are actually several players in the store when we were able to host Tuesday Night Modern who played against, who built the decks and played against each other, and those games are always good at time, and it always seemed like they always got like 1 game in. When Modern is usually a lot faster paced. So I'd say probably Lantern Control just because of just how boring it is.
Okay. Why do people hate core sets?
Since I'm not a person who hates core sets, I really don't know the answer. I can't really speak for everybody else. I think there's kind of just a negative connotation. I think people like new, inventive things, especially too, because I forget exactly how long, but the better part of the 21st century, we've been going to different planes, and we've made a point to say we're going to Zendikar, we're going to Innistrad, we're going to wherever. So a core set doesn't really, focus on that. So there's really no set thematic thing you can attach yourself to. So when there's not like a complete like design structure around a set, and it just seems like a lot of reprints and things we've seen before, I just don't think people really get hyped up in the same way. So like when they did Ikoria, I know a lot of people were interested in going into it because, well, this is brand new. There's a lot more new mechanics. They really don't introduce brand new mechanics in core sets. And like I said, they have reprints, but the reprints that they've had in the last 3 sets have functionally been very, very good. And I think that a lot of, I don't say advanced players, but more seasoned veteran players just look at it as a jumping on point for beginners. And they might have like a sense of like, no, I'm too good for this. Again, I don't know if that's true for everybody. So if you are a seasoned veteran who just doesn't like core set for a different reason, don't take offense to it because I'm not targeting you. But I'm sure that is a mentality that some people do have. No, but I think there's also core sets before they stopped doing them, before Origins. I think there were several core sets that were kind of watered down and still kind of have that negative connotation, even now as we're in Core 21. So I think if they were to possibly introduce new mechanics but defeat support for core sets anyways, I don't think there's anything Wizards can do to change anyone's mind on it. So I think that stigma is going to be stuck until the people who do hate it have a reason to start liking it, and that's going to be on them and really no one else.
I notice you seemingly get excited over the art of the cards. Who is your favorite artist, and what is your favorite card art?
No, it is true. There are a lot of times where I get a little hyped up when I see a pretty cool art. Even when they did like kind of like the jankier gimmicky things like the comic book art, as a comic book fan, I thought that's pretty cool. But in terms of artists, I mean, I think it really depends on what kind of card it is too. I mean, this is going to sound maybe tongue-in-cheek now, but I mean, Therese Nielsen was my favorite artist. I mean, I might not agree with everything she says or her beliefs, but I mean, I'm not going to discredit her ability to draw cards I like. Other ones, Rebecca Goya her art's incredible. If I'm looking at like kind of like the darker art, if I see like a black card that has like zombies or something on it, things are supposed to be kind of creepy, I want to see Izzy. His art's really cool. But I mean, I think the pool of artists at this point is very, very strong. In terms of like a classic artist, Mark Teaton was awesome, and Mark Poole. Those two guys can draw plans like no one's business. Yes, there are some cards now that may look better because they're kind of like CGI'd, but their art was just very good in the 90s and early 2000s.
I know this is a hot button topic, but what do you think about the removal of Therese Nielsen and Noah Bradley?
No, that is definitely a button topic. I think the situations around them were completely different. So I think they address each one of those situations individually. The easy one is Noah Bradley. He admitted and is a self-proclaimed sexual predator. That's obviously highly offensive, and depending to what extent, because I haven't done enough research on exactly what he did to be a sexual predator. Depending on what it is illegal, and that's just a negative connotation to have as a company. So his removal was obvious. He did something wrong. He admitted to doing something wrong. Regardless if he did admit to it or not, and it came out that he was a terrible person, then he should be removed. Therese Nielsen, again, I don't agree with a lot of what she posts on Twitter. I personally am not like 100% a fan of like cancel culture in and of itself. People just calling for things they don't like. I just think it's a little over the top in some cases. Not all the time. I think there are some very good examples of cancel culture being a very good thing. But this is one of those times where I would enough agree with it. Even though she's my favorite artist, I would agree with the removal. The reason why is she was continually posting things. It wasn't like she wrote something in 2011 that people didn't agree with. She was still posting stuff in 2020 that Wizards made more than clear, this is not our thoughts as a company. You can write in your bio all you want that my thoughts are my own and they're not reflective of Wizards or the company I work for. It doesn't matter. at the end of the day, we are a free country, and you are free to say whatever you want. That's your inalienable right, that you can say whatever you want. So you're free to do that, but you're not free from consequences. So in the same way as us being a free society, if a company deems that what you're saying is recklessly irresponsible and doesn't line up with your core values as a company, then you have the freedom to remove somebody to reflect that. Especially because she wasn't like personally hired by Wizards, I don't believe. I think that she was kind of contracted out where they commissioned art from her, that they could have ended that at any time. So if people just like call it out for her and be like, oh, well, she likes this person and I don't like this person, I'd be like, okay, it's a bit ridiculous. But again, if the company makes it more than clear that they are not going to support your beliefs, then you probably shouldn't be proclaiming those kind of beliefs. It's same thing. I work in another company. As soon as I try to get my stuff promoted, they will probably be scouring my social media pages, and they should. It's kind of like another version of a background check at this point. It's the cheapest way of doing a background check is by looking at your social media history. If I posted something that was from 2009, because I was a different person in 2009 than 2020. If I posted something in 2009 that the company I worked for was like, oh, whoa, we don't like this, I can still cite in response, well, I haven't said anything like that in 11 years. But if I'm writing the same type of thing and making my beliefs very public and they don't align with the company I work for, and I'm making it very public and I know the beliefs of the company I work for and what kind of message they send, so that's why I don't really swear on social media. I don't swear in my YouTube videos because that's going to be one of the things that get pulled up. So why'd I put a target on my own back? So I have the freedom to say what I want, but they also have the freedom to say you're not going to be moving up and further representing us as a company.
How does owning a shop affect you as a player?
Tremendously. I have a different appreciation for the game. I'm not really as much of a player now. I still play Commander with my buddies, but that's because I only maintain a few decks. But as soon as somebody sees a card that they like, and it's in my deck, then I have a different mentality where I'm like, what can I get for this card? Where before I was like, no, this is mine, I'm holding on to it. So and before, like I used to watch different prices of cards because I was actually physically paying for them at full price, or trading things at full price to acquire pieces that I had full intention of keeping for the sake of using them. But now it's completely different. So I now see things in a completely different sense of value. I'm more apt to look at different trends of prices on cards for what can I sell it at versus what am I going to be paying for it to use. And I look at trends and say, okay, this card is $25. It was $50 at that point. Why did it drop 50%? And what can I realistically expect to pay somebody to get this without it decreasing even more, or did it plateau? So I just have a different mindset on the game. I'm looking at sealed product a lot differently, where I would just open packs and for the sake of playing with the cards or using them as trade fodder. Where now I'm more prone to hang on to sealed products because I'm expecting it to go up in value at some point.
How do you think WotC handled the mass banning of questionable cards? Examples are Crusade and Invoke Prejudice.
I feel like I have to be careful because if WotC actually starts watching my videos, I should probably be careful on how I say this. We kind of touched on cancel culture before. I think this is a mixed bag of being a good example and a bad example. Because I've asked a lot of people in the store, hey, what are your thoughts on this as a player? People I knew who had completely different mentalities politically. People who were very liberal, a lot of people who were very conservative. And the general consensus seemed like this was very, very poorly handled. And the reason why I say that is because what is functionally wrong with Crusade? Is it the fact that it's white creatures? Well, then don't have white cards, because that is one of the 5 main color groups in Magic. Is it the Crusade? Okay, then why was just Crusade removed? I mean, there's 25 examples of Crusade being printed on a card. So if it's Crusade, then get rid of all of them, not just the one. is it the card art? Well, there's several different arts for Crusade. Is it the one from 7th edition where they're like the Knight Templars? Well, then get rid of that version. So I think too is like when you have like one of those like morality situations, and you're basing it just on perceived morality, I think that you're kind of treading into dangerous waters. You should take the universally agreed upon terrible cards like Invoke Prejudice. I mean, it's literally in the card name, Invoke Prejudice, and it was written by a known KKK clan member, and obviously very much a known racist. The card art is beyond offensive, regardless of your beliefs on anything, unless you're a KKK member. So, getting rid of like that card, for example, was a great idea. Now, where I think they really mismanaged this whole situation was saying that we're going to keep evaluating and removing more cards as we see fit. Well, so what's going to change between now and that time? Are more people going to call out for another 10, 15 cards to get removed? If those cards are going to be considered offensive then, or later, then why aren't they considered offensive now? So what they shouldn't theoretically do, or should have done, is even if it was 10,000 cards that they want to get rid of, which obviously is ridiculous since I don't know how many cards there are, I think it's like 44,000 or something. But even if they said, we're going to get rid of 25% of our Magic history in terms of cards because we deemed them offensive, just do it once. Rip off the Band-Aid, have everyone up in a tizzy for a few weeks, then they'll move on with their lives. But by creating a flesh wound and then putting a Band-Aid on it, removing the Band-Aid, then re-stabbing it when it starts healing again, that's just going to drive more people away in the long term. And I just don't see the tangible benefit for doing that. If you deem something offensive now that you say, oh, we might find this offensive later, then what changed? So I think the whole situation could have been handled better. I see the intention behind it, and I agree with the intention behind it. Is people make mistakes, people grow up, and that's perfectly fine. That's reasonable. Times changed. The world's a different place in 2020 than it was in 1993 or 1985 or 2000, 2001. So obviously you have to kind of change with that and say we made mistakes, we did things that may be deemed offensive, but I think there's only just a handful of obvious examples. They should have stuck with those.
What are your thoughts on the reserve list?
See, this kind of, like, weirdly enough, it's a simple question, but it's kind of like a three-parter, because I have three different perspectives on it. One is as a former collector, one is a former player, one is as a current business owner. As a current business owner and a person who sees everything as a potential investment, I'm perfectly okay with it. Granted, people point the reserve list as, oh, you're protecting the collectors, only so many people collect and are investing. Watch people invest in a card game. Well, that's their choice. That's 100% their choice what they do with the cards. If you choose to put them in your bicycle spokes, then that's on you. If you choose to play with cards, that's also on you. If you choose to play it on sleeve, that's on you. If you want to invest and potentially make money on a quote-unquote children's card game, then that's your choice to do so. So I have no problem with the reserve list. Like a lot of the cards, the heavy hitters, probably shouldn't ever be printed again. Like the original dual lands are vastly overpowered, and what format can you reprint them in? What would be the benefit? To get people playing Legacy more? I don't see it being worth it. Wizards doesn't make that much money by pumping out more Legacy product. And if they were to reprint a lot of these like original dual lands, kind of where they kind of have the cutoff line between good reserve list and bad reserve list, a lot of the cards on reserve list are either banned and restricted in older formats or just in general because they're very, very, very overpowered. But like the dual lands or the Moxes or Black Lotus or whatever, cards that still can be played in those formats, what is the benefit to doing that? Well, we'll get more people playing Legacy. Okay, so you get more new people playing it, but you could functionally annoy or take off the people who've invested thousands of dollars into their decks, and you're devaluing their purchases or their investments. And the argument can be made, well, who cares about them? Well, if it wasn't for them, there would be no secondary market. And everything that we see in the store would just be functionally cardboard. And that would kind of cease the existence of a lot of stores. Because people who spend thousands of dollars on Magic cards spend thousands of dollars in stores to get that. So by them not having that capital to throw at stores to get those cards in, the stores have less money to get more sealed product in, which would in turn affect people trying to play standard or modern or commander or whatever other format by having less product available to them because there wasn't a person just to throw $4,000 at a card or $2,000 at a card or whatever the monetary amount is.
As a store owner, do you have a problem with Secret Lair?
Secret Lair, functionally, I don't have a problem with it. If they want to do like a specialty thing to send to people who buy into it, that's perfectly fine. If it was, here's 5 cards and they're all, the whole package is $30, no problem with it. I think it's actually kind of a cool thing. As a retailer, I think it kind of sucks because there's one less product for us to offer in store, but Hasbro's been pumping out product left and right. That at some points it is kind of hard to kind of keep up with all the things coming out. So giving players access to more cards and kind of circumventing LGSs, if that's what they want to do, they're fine to do that. The only problem I ever had with Secret Lair was Wizards coming out and saying, well, we don't really go by secondary market prices. We don't really believe it exists. We acknowledge it exists, but we don't really believe that it does, or whatever they said. I don't remember the exact quote, it doesn't matter. But to have that kind of stance on secondary market and then come out with a product that doesn't historically line up with what you'd set Secret Lairs at, and then instead going by the general market price for the cards, I have a problem with that. It's hypocritical. Well, that's my biggest pet peeve, my personal, professional life is hypocrisy. And I just can't get it. So we're going to come up with Secret Lairs, $30 a piece for 5 cards, alternate arts or different themes. Very cool. That's awesome. I'm on board with that. As a former collector, I would be all about those. But then to say, oh, we don't believe in secondary market. By the way, here's 5 fetch lands that are $150 added up. Well, we're going to sell this for $150. Well, it costs you the same amount of money to print and package 5 fetch lands as it does for 5 other cards that are roughly $5 in value a piece. That seems kind of like they're cherry picking and they're just banking on people hopefully being stupid. Again, I've seen the lands, I think they're cool, but I just don't see the tangible benefit for them doing that because it's going to allow people like me to call them out for it.
Will Jumpstart become a product in regular rotation like the Master sets?
I think it's going to kind of take the place of the unsets because for the last 2 years they did the unsets again. They did unstable, then unsanctioned the following year. So I think that they're going to do a secondary product or supplemental product that's kind of outside the realm of like a master set or a standard set. So I think that we might see Jumpstart again, but I don't think it's going to be for a long time. I think they want to get more casual players in. So I think that Jumpstart was a good way for them to do that, but it kind of in a way kind of blew up in their face because a lot of the new cards were very, very good for people who've already played Magic and are playing Commander or they're playing Legacy. There's a lot of very good playable cards that have come out. So I think that they would either do it again but water it down, or they would just maybe revamp how they would do it. And I probably wouldn't predict it happening for another maybe 2 or 3 years at this point.
What are your thoughts on VIP packs?
I'm assuming that's in response to Double Masters saying that they're going to put out $100 packs for VIP. I have zero problem with it. If again, there's a collector's market, and there's people who want to spend $100 on a pack of cards. That's up to them. I don't think that Wizards needs to be demonized for that, because again, if they're going to pump out cards and product that is theoretically worth on the marketplace for $100, then go ahead. That's perfectly fine. If they see that this is a complete failure and there's not as many people interested in buying specialty product, then they would probably completely abandon it. I think this is kind of a response to a lot of sporting cards companies. People complained that the sporting card industry completely crashed in the 80s and 90s, and that's more of a response of just a bunch of like no-name companies just pumping out like 1,000 different cards. But they kind of did now more like a specialty thing, like how many packs has a specialty collector card where it's signed by Aaron Judge or any big league player, or there's like pieces of game use jersey or something like that. So I think the VIP packs kind of offer people an opportunity to get the cooler alternate art cards, and I think you're going to kind of see it go that way eventually, where you're going to have like, oh, this is a hand-drawn sketch by Rebecca Goyer, and one of every 20 VIP packs has one to incentivize people spending a lot of money. I think you're going to see more of that thing happening down the line. The only problem I'd have with it, and weirdly enough, oops, there's a fly. Rudy from Alpha Investments made this point, and I completely agree with it. That if they offer a different tier of cards, not like in terms of like aesthetics, but like functionality, if they offered a different tier of cards in the different packs, then I'd have a problem with it. So they said, oh, well, in the regular double master set, just for sake of argument, in the regular set, we're going to have shock lands, but in the VIP packs, you're going to get fetch lands. I'd have a problem with it. If you're going to print to say fetch lands or shocks or whatever, make it available in both. Just have the cooler looking ones, or like the full art promo, like an expedition style Misty Rainforest in the VIP, then just have a regular boring run of the mill Zendikar style Misty Rainforest in the regular product. So I think the biggest thing that people can do, and not people, but the Wizards can do, is just keep the functionality the same, but separate the collectability. So if collectors want to spend more money, then they can do that. Okay, so yeah, that was a lot of content, right? A lot of questions, but there's more. So we're going to end this video right here, and then we're going to do another video. We're going to post that one tomorrow. So to see the rest of the kind of interview, I guess, or AMA, whatever you want to call it, be sure to tune in for that. So that's going to be the end of this video. Thanks for checking it out.